Hi everybody, this is Mrs. Langham at Uvalde Classical Academy in Uvalde, Texas. Today we're going to be reading Esperanza Rising by Pam Munoz Ryan. And we're going to be looking at it for our 6th grade literature class. And yeah, it's going to be really exciting. I really love this book. Esperanza is a very near and dear character to my heart because she reminds me a lot of my grandmother, who was also a Mexican migrant worker in California. She lived in all the different camps and everything, and she used to tell me stories that really reminded me a lot of the things that happen in this book. So we're going to start on page 1. I'm going to warn you right now, my pronunciation of these words is not going to be excellent, so please forgive me. But anyway, let's read along, and we're going to do some discussion questions as we go. All right, we're starting off in 1924. Our land is alive, Esperanza, said Papa, taking her small hand as they walked through the gentle slopes of the vineyard. Leafy green vines draped the arbors, and the grapes were ready to drop. Esperanza was 6 years old and loved to walk with her papa through the winding rows, gazing up at him and watching his eyes dance with love for the land. This whole valley breathes and lives, he said, sweeping his arms towards the distant mountains that guarded them. It gives us the grapes, and then they welcome us. He gently touched the wild tendril that reached into the row as if it had been waiting to shake his hand. He picked up a handful of earth and studied it. Do you know that when you lie down on the land, you can feel it breathe? That you can feel its heart beating? Papi, I want to feel it, she said. Come. They walked to the end of the row where the incline of the land formed a grassy swell. Papa lay down on his stomach and looked up at her, patting the ground next to him. Esperanza smoothed her dress and knelt down. Then, like a caterpillar, she slowly inched flat next to him, their faces looking at each other. The warm sun pressed on one of Esperanza's cheeks and the warm earth on the other. She giggled. Shh, he said. You can only feel the earth's heartbeat when you are still and quiet. She swallowed her laughter, and after a moment she said, I can't hear it, Papi. And this part right here is a Spanish phrase, so here we go. Aguante, I don't even know, I'm not even going to say it. Aguante tanito la fuerza. I don't know. Anyway, we'll just skip that part. He said, Wait a little while and the fruit will fall into your hand. You must be patient, Esperanza. She waited and lay silent, watching Papa's eyes, and then she felt it, slowly at first, a gentle thumping. I cannot talk today. A gentle thumping, then stronger, a resounding thud, thud, thud against her body. She could hear it too, the beat rushing in her ears. Schwamp, schwamp, schwamp. She stared at Papa, not wanting to say a word, not wanting to lose the sound, not wanting to forget the feel of the heart of the valley. She pressed closer to the ground until her body was breathing the earth's, and with Papa's, the 3 hearts beating together. She smiled at Papa, not needing to talk, her eyes saying everything, and his smile answered hers, telling her that he knew she had felt it. I really love this book, and I like the way it's written, and I am so sorry. Even though I have a lot of Hispanic heritage inside of me, the language trait of that did not transfer very well. So I do apologize for not being able to say those phrases the way that they were meant to be said, because Spanish is such a beautiful language, and it has such a sound when it's said. Let's talk a little bit about some of the things that we saw in this little mini chapter. This is actually just the beginning. If you'll notice on page 1, there's some personification. So it talks about the land being alive. So in your question sheet that you're looking at, it's going to ask you if you are noticing any examples of personification. And the land actually having a heartbeat, the land having all these different characteristics is going to be considered personification. So when you answer your questions, remember you have to answer using complete sentences, and you must restate the question. So that's a really cool thing. You'll notice that as we're characterizing Esperanza, that she is 6 years old at the beginning of this in 1924. And so that's important to note because it's going to give us a timeline of the different things that are going to happen in her life. As we look at the setting of this, again, the year is 1924, and the setting is going to be actually in Mexico. At the top of your page, it says the name of the town and, of course, the country, which is Mexico. And I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce it because we all know that would not go very well. So if you keep looking down on page 1, you'll see more expressions of personification. You can see that the valley is breathing and living. You can see that it's talking about the grapes welcoming them and that they have breath, they have a heartbeat, they have a soul. And so in the question that talks about that, make sure that you note those answers. There's also a simile on page 2. If you noticed when we were reading, remember a simile uses a comparison with like or as. And so a metaphor is simply a comparison that compares two unlike things and gives them a common ground, but it does not use those words as or like. So remember, we're looking for a simile. So I'll give you a second to kind of look on page 2 and tell me if you can find a simile right there. No pressure. Just waiting on you. It's at the top of the page. Did you find it? Okay, so if you look at the sentence, or the paragraph, Esperanza smoothed her dress and knelt down. Then, like a caterpillar, she slowly inched flat next to him, their faces looking at each other. That little phrase right there, like a caterpillar, that's acting like a simile because it's comparing her to a caterpillar. Clearly, Esperanza is not a caterpillar, but the action of crawling that she's taking is very similar to a caterpillar. So that would be an example of a simile in this first part of the story. And then we have another really cool trait here that we're looking at. It's actually an onomatopoeia. Say it with me. Onomatopoeia. 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 It's really fun to say a lot of times. Maybe not so much in video, but definitely in real life. All right, so if you look at the bottom of page 2, you're going to see the example. It's schwamp, schwamp, schwamp. Of course, the word schwamp isn't a word. You can't go schwamping through the forest, or you can't buy me a schwamp, please. You know, it just doesn't make sense. So in the book, they're actually using that word as a sound. So it's not meant to be a word as in something that has a definition. It's meant to be a sound. It represents a sound. So you can kind of hear what their footsteps are sounding like, or what that beat is sounding like. So you can hear it like the ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. It's that same type of sound. Shwoop, shwoop, shwoop. The land is actually beating and the land is alive. So in the question that asks, did you see any onomatopoeias? You will be able to answer that completely. All right, ladies and gents, you wonderful, fine 6th graders, that is the end of that first little bit right there. So pages 1 through 3, and check out the next video for the next section that you're supposed to do. Okay, guys, enjoy your time learning at home, and this is part 1 of distance learning. Is it off?